All right, welcome to the Magic Makers podcast. Another great episode here. I'm your host, Jason DeRocha, Vice President of Sportball, and I'm here with my brother and friend and just one of the most awesome human beings I know, Luke Lavorato, our franchise owner in Edmonton, Alberta. Luke, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure is all mine, Jay.
So this is kind of cool. And Luke, obviously you and I talk offline all the time, but it's kind of nice to be able to catch one of our conversations and record it and then share it with everybody because like I said, you're one of my favorite people. I've learned so much from you. You just said just before we started, we've known each other for almost half of our lives. And yeah, it's been quite the journey. So Luke, if you don't mind starting by just telling everybody a little bit about, your journey. How did you find Sportball? Maybe I could learn a little bit. What were you doing before Sportball? How did you find Sportball? Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, what was my journey? I graduated from the University of Alberta, and I was playing football there. And I kind of decided I didn't want to play football anymore. I was at the end of that journey, and I already had a family at the time. I got married pretty young, and I had a wife and two kids already. And I was kind of deciding, like, what do I want to do with my life? I graduated with a business degree, so I was looking for careers, and I was working for Bell, like the cell phone company, as a manager. And I had a bunch of really cool options, actually. My dad is really well connected in the city. And so he set me up with a whole bunch of great interviews with like big companies. And I did really well in the interviews and I had a bunch of really neat offers. And then my regional manager at the time, and she's just an awesome, awesome leader, just said, "Have you ever heard of sport ball?" And I said, "What the heck is a sport ball?" And uh, and so I went on to the website. She said, "Listen, my friend does it in Toronto. It's like amazing. Her kids love it." And she said, "I just think you'd be real natural at it." So I looked it up and I found the website really intriguing and just randomly filled out the franchisee form. And the next day, Mark Gelger, who's the creator of Sportball, he called me just randomly, and like I was just standing outside of a Bell kiosk, and we just had like a random hour and a half conversation. And he's a really charming guy, so it was just
He
great to
is.
get to know him. And he said, "Well, we have a corporate location down in Calgary. Why don't you go check it out?" So, in the next couple months, we went down to Calgary. And I remember thinking this, Jay, really specifically, because I had just come from one of the most competitive atmospheres you can be in sport, in like university sports. And I remember thinking arrogantly, like, how is this thing non competitive? Like, sports are supposed to be competitive. I remember walking to the gym, and Sam was the coach who's still in Calgary. And he was just so welcoming and came up and he's just like, "Hey, it's really nice to meet you." And he's like, "Do you want to watch for a bit and then jump in?" And I said, "Sure." So I watched for maybe 5 minutes and then I was like, "No, I got to get in there." And I remember within the first 10 minutes, it might have been one of the most humbling moments of my life because I just remember thinking, "Man, I'm so wrong. This is so cool. This is exactly how kids should be learning sports." I was just so blown away. It was one of the most life-changing moments I even remember what the gym looked like. So then after that, I kind of went home and talked to my wife. And remember, we were a really young family and just coming out of school, so we had no money. And by far the other four or five choices that I had were way more financially secure choices, and potential for like really high end living. And my wife kind of said, like, "Right, but when you talk about sport ball, you light up. So like, I don't think there's a choice. So like, why don't we give it a try?" And honestly, Jay, I think I'm not one of those people that's like, there's only one career path for only one person, and like,
Uh,
careers would have been just fine, and I'm sure I would have enjoyed it, and the people there were great. But I guarantee you that none of them would have been as fulfilling as what we've done, kind of, like you and me, and as our teams as was sport ball. Just
yeah.
the day to day of building into kids' lives, and then also building into people's lives that build into kids' lives, like their coaches. It's just been such a cool journey. And like when I look back on it, I wouldn't have changed what path I went.
I remember when you came into the market, and you and your cousin, and it was just like, man, these guys are gonna do so well. What were some of the challenges that you faced, like getting going and out of the gates?
Yeah, that's a good question. As a sport ball owner, the biggest thing, to be honest, was being a great coach. Because if you either need to be a great coach or hire a great coach. I obviously am very a big advocate of the first thing, right? Like, if you were teaching me basketball and you didn't know how to play basketball, I'd probably not respect you quite as much, right? Like,
Right.
it's just like when you see someone. Now, that doesn't mean just because you're good at something you're gonna be a good coach, but it
Sure.
definitely when you see someone who can shoot threes with their eyes closed. And it's the same thing with sport ball. If you're a great coach, like, people will instantly listen to the advice you give because you're the best at what you do. Like there's a reason
Yeah.
like Tad, who's our main trainer, and Tad is one of the greatest sport ball coaches you'll ever meet. There's a big reason people just when he talks, they instantly listen is because they've seen him coach and they go, yeah, like he's the man, right? That was the first challenge was just learning how to be a great coach because I was the product at the beginning. And then from there, I think the biggest hurdles were just learning the business side of it, right? Like how do you go to a new location and tell them that they need sport ball as opposed to just doing it themselves? How do
Right.
you grow from there? How do you take a class of 3 and turn it into a class of 15? Um, and then the next step is like learning how to train your people because that's your thing, right? Like we don't sell widgets, we sell children's programming. So your
That's
coaches
right.
are your product. And just how do you find the right people? And then B, how do you train them properly? And then C, how do you make sure that they want to stay and they enjoy the job?
Yeah, yeah, I think you're exactly right. Right. When a franchise starts or an entrepreneur goes into business, like the amount of hats that you wear, you could get lost in any one of those hats. And then all of a sudden you have no time for the rest of those responsibilities to run a successful business. So,
Mm.
yeah, I agree. I think that once you've locked in that foundation of, you know, hiring great coaches, training great coaches, finding the right locations and program partners, it makes it a lot easier to then go find your customers and convince them of the merits of your program. So yeah, that's a wonderful, wonderful base. So you touched on something that was really key, and you really brushed it so gently, but I think it's probably one of the greatest attributes of Sportball Edmonton, and that is what you do to hire, train, and retain your coaches and the culture that you build. I don't think, including corporate markets in Toronto and Calgary, I don't think I've ever seen a team and culture quite like the one that you've built in Edmonton. So, do you mind maybe sharing a little bit about how you were able to build such an incredible culture at your organization of a bunch of coaches who are probably the most passionate professional coaches on the planet?
And that's very humbling, Jay. Thank you for saying that. It's definitely not. It's brick by brick, right? It's not something that just happens naturally. I think the first thing is having good role models, right? Like you and Mark and everybody and Daryl and all the people that train me. That helped a ton. I think one thing is hiring the right people. That's the first step, right? And so learning how to find the right people for your team is huge. And then I think the next step is onboarding them properly. I think setting that tone early is really important. And setting that tone means a couple things. One of them is making sure that they know that they're loved and cared for and that we're on the same team. We're pulling the same rope together, right? Like we're not sitting there going, "Hey, we need you to do this." We're all on this journey together. And then I think another thing is setting the proper expectations. I mean, where do most relationships, whether business or personal, break down? It's usually in bad communication, and where people expect one thing and then something else happens because it wasn't communicated properly. And we don't want to drop the ball with our coaches, with our staff, like our team members, as little as possible, right? I mean, we're not
Right.
going to be perfect, but so I think setting expectations early is huge because then when you say like, "Hey, I expect you to be on time," and on time for us is 15 minutes early, and you say that in the welcome meeting, you say that in your email, you say that in the Padawan training. Sorry, we call it Padawan training
Yeah.
in Edmonton. Then they know like there's no room for miscommunication. Like if you really want people to show up on time and show up in uniform and to be aggressively friendly, in other words, like going out of the way to make people feel special, you've got to tell them that over and over and over again and you have to show them as well. Telling is not teaching, right? Like showing
Mm,
and like modeling it is a really, really big thing too. So I guess I kind of skipped ahead there, but like when you onboard, like, so we'll do an onboarding meeting and it's just literally get to know. We ask them a bunch of questions on how to get to know. I tell them my story about how I started sport ball. Tad does the same thing. The goal is eventually to take them through the guidebook that head office just made, which I think is so cool that you guys did that. I just saw that Tad showed me and it's like, what a amazing thing to bring forward. And they just
yeah.
excited about the job, but then also show them like, hey, these are the things we expect.
I want to ask you, what would success look like for you when it's all said and done? You've built a wonderful business. You've been doing this, like you said, for 18 years. When you look back on what you've built as a business, how will you measure whether or not you were successful?
That's a great question. I would say three things. One, and the most important thing is through sport ball and through like my coaches and stuff like that, did we positively impact as many kids' lives as humanly possible? And I think that's a bit of a, it sounds like it's a bit of a cliche or a cookie cutter answer, but it's the right answer. Like, if 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4. It doesn't matter how you dress it up. Like
Hmm.
I grew up with a father who was a professional athlete, and he was just kind of born different, right? Big hands, long arms, runs like the wind. He's a beast, right? And so some of that is just like you just got to be born with the right stuff. And so for everyone else, that just all of us normal mortals that they have to play sports, I just want them to have a great experience in life. And so that's the number one thing is, will children leave our classes and feel like, hey, life's an adventure. I can do anything. I want to live a beautifully whimsical life that's fearless and excited. And if we can build into that, then that's the greatest. I think the third thing too, selfishly and somewhat selfishly, would be, did I find a way to find the amount of work life balance so that I could prioritize my family? uh, I think when you run a business, it's real easy to just like put your head down and go, especially if you're ambitious and you work hard and you like it. Like I always said, if I was single, I would have worked sport ball 6 in the morning till 8 at night, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe not coaching the whole time because I would have been exhausted, but I would have,
Yeah.
but I loved the work, right? And so when you have a family and you have things like that, though, it's really important that if you do your job right, you'll have time that when your child has a concert, you can be there. If you need to coach one of the teams, you can prioritize that and you don't just have to be working 24/7. So
Yeah.
I feel like that would be the last thing is, did I free myself up enough to make sure that I'm available for the people in my life that I love? I love coaching football. I'm a dance choreographer for musical theater programs at my kid's school, and it's like one of my favorite things in the world is like giving back to those kids and stuff like that. So, but I couldn't do that if I didn't run my business successful enough that I could free myself up to go do that.
Man, I love it. I'm jealous of you for so many reasons, but the fact that you're a dance choreographer is probably it's at the top of the list. It's so
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we can get you dancing. I believe it.
I don't know. Listen, growth mindset, and you're a great coach. I wouldn't put it past you, but yeah, many great coaches have tried and failed. But yeah, but honestly, Luke, like you are. Yeah, I love those three measurements of success. I think that's remarkable. And I think the one thing that I'd say is, I remember those days for myself personally, when I started, 2000 and whatever it was 4, I was the guy working like 6 a.m. to closing this office that we're in right now at 10 p.m. at night, because that's what time our last class would end at 9, and I would clean up the facility and close it at 10. I'd be so fired up to do it again the next day, and doing that for years. And then when I became a dad, you're absolutely right. Like making sure that you recognize that everyone's in a state of evolution, and it's important to, when you're hiring and training people, to bring them on that journey with you, because at some point in time they'll be in a position to work those long days and to give it everything that they've got because they're passionate about it. That's what they want to do, and it can free you yourself up to doing the things that you need to do given the stage of life that you're at. And I think, seeing sport ball as it is today, now as, starting here as a part-time coach and now being vice president, being part of a leadership team, where we all respect that and want that for one another. So you almost create those opportunities for other people as well. So when I need to step up so that someone else can spend time with their family, or to take care of a priority in their personal life, I can do that. And it happens vice versa. And I love being in that space now as an organization, because it does recognize the humanity that all of us are facing at the end of the day. All the lessons that you've taught to kids, is there any lessons that you teach to kids that you sometimes feel like adults forget, and that you wish that you could turn to the adults in the room or outside the room and say, hey, here's a lesson that I think that you should know as well?
But do you want it in alphabetical order or?
Short list.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is just teaching kids to be um grateful, right? I think that it gets
Mm,
nowadays where people just unfortunately feel really entitled, like the world owes me. And that's a
yeah.
big lesson you teach the kids in class, right? Like, no, you don't just get whatever you want. You have to wait your turn sometimes, and you have to sometimes it's your job to support somebody else. And I think that's probably a good one. I think probably the biggest lesson though is, don't take sports so seriously.
Mm,
I was playing squash with a friend of mine yesterday, and he's a young man, right? He's way younger. He's actually younger than my oldest son, so that's kind of nuts.
okay.
So we were playing squash, and he was like, "Did you really push your kids into sports?" And da da da. And I was like, and I kind of told him how I raised my kids, and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna like." I'm gonna push my kids hard. I don't think I have a choice. And I'm like, hey, like I appreciate that you want to do that, but I don't think life always doesn't work out like that. And I think a lot of times parents are so stressed that their kids aren't gonna make it into college as like an athlete, or they're not gonna make the pros. And it's like just have fun. Like sports are supposed to
Mm,
be fun. Like my dad who's 73, he wakes up and he'll play pickleball for 3 hours for 2 or 3 hours, and then he'll play squash right after that, and he'll come home, and then he'll go swim 5 laps, and he's not doing that to make a sports team, he just loves it, right? He just
yeah.
loves. And the reason he was such a successful athlete is because he just loved playing sports. He just played for hours, and he loved it, and it's like, well, parents, if you can get your kids to love sports, you never have to push them to do it. They're gonna wanna do it.
That last point that you made, all fair and great points, Luke, but don't take sports too seriously. I think, especially with what we see what's happening right now in youth sports and specialization and burnout and
Totally.
and the fallout. Once kids fall out of love with sports and physical activity, well, then that promotes sedentary behavior, and we have more reasons to be sedentary today than any time in human history. With the amount of electronics that we put in kids' hands and automation and iPads and iPhones and stuff. Kids have every reason to just sit back and do nothing.
Nothing.
And so you don't want to give them an excuse to stay off the court or off the field. So not taking it sport too seriously, letting them go out there and just develop a love of the game and a passion for sports. Hopefully, when it's time to take it seriously, they'll do it because they've already fallen in love with the sport, not because mom or dad said so.
Yeah, and another thing is, like, if they wanna play with you, just say yes. Like, if your kids are like, "I wanna play catch," yeah, go do it. I don't care how tired you are. If you want your kids to play sports, go play catch with them and make it fun, right? Like, you don't have to overthink it. Just throw the ball and talk to them about whatever they love at the time, right? And so, I think that's a big thing is being present. And I know not every family has the ability to do that because, they work long hours and stuff like that. But if you have a chance, like, go have fun with them and just do it because it doesn't matter if you're good at the sport. They just
Yeah,
wanna hang out with you. I mean,
that's right.
that's it.
That's why
So,
we do parent participation classes at Sportball. Yeah, we want to make sure that parents are engaged and putting the phone down and kids their childhood is so short. It's such a short period of time and it flies by like that. And your kids have become they're, your eldest is an incredible coach for you at Sportball.
mm,
They're involved in the community. They're involved in productions. They will find what they're passionate for. Our job as parents is to be as supportive and as loving as we possibly can, give them a safe place to land when they fall and help them back up,
yeah,
you know?
you can put that on a pillow. That's the perfect that's
Yeah.
what you said. If a parent just listened to that and did it, I think that's about as successful as they're gonna get. That's awesome.
Well, Luke, I got to tell you, man, I'm so glad you put the paper route away. I'm so glad that you put the restaurant away. I'm so glad that you left the mobility company and selling there and joined Sportball. You've made a difference in kids' lives, coaches' lives, so many community partners' lives, and then all of us here at Sportball are better because of the work and time and effort that you and your family have put into building a wonderful business. So I'm honored to work with you. I'm honored to call you my brother, and thank you so much for joining me on the Magic Makers podcast today.
Oh, pleasure's all mine, Jay. Thank you for the kind words too. That means a lot coming from you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the Sportball cruise in October.
Yeah.
That's going to be an amazing time,
Oh, that's gonna be awesome. A cruise is like a bunch of sport ball people. That's like the
man.
best thing ever. So it'll be
Can't
great.
wait.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Take care of yourself.